All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are diving headfirst into a massive political firestorm that's been raging in India. It's all about these explosive accusations of election fraud, and it's a complicated story full of claims, counterclaims, and a real battle over the integrity of democracy itself.
So the whole thing really boils down to this one very powerful phrase, vote chori. Now, that literally translates to vote theft. And this isn't just some catchy slogan. It's the central accusation that the official list of who can vote was deliberately messed with to basically steal an election.
Okay, so you've got two completely different stories, right? One party is screaming that this whole thing cost them the election. The government and the election authorities, they're saying it's pure fiction, totally made up. So, what's the real story here? Let's break it all down.
So how did this all kick off? Well, it started with the opposition leader, Rahul Gandhi. He came out and pointed the finger directly at the ruling BJP party and at India's Election Commission, the ECI, accusing them of working together to rig the vote.
And listen, we're not talking about some minor accusation here. No. The claim was that this so-called vote theft was so widespread that it actually affected the results in a whopping 48 different parliamentary constituencies.
To really make their point, the opposition zoomed in on one specific area, a constituency called Mahadevapura. And the details they laid out were, well, they were staggering. They claimed there were over 100,000 errors on the voter list. We're talking duplicate names, people listed at fake addresses, even wrong photos. At one point, they said there were huge numbers of people registered to a single address. For them, this wasn't just some clerical error. They argued it was a planned, deliberate strategy.
Well, as you can probably guess, the Election Commission of India did not just sit there and take it. They fired back, and they fired back hard.
Their public response was crystal clear. They just shut it all down. Their official word, all of these claims are completely and totally baseless. Period.
But they didn't just deny it. Oh no, they threw down the gauntlet. They issued a direct challenge to Rahul Gandhi, basically saying, okay, you want to make these claims? Put up or shut up. The demand was simple. Either give us a legally sworn affidavit with actual proof, or you need to issue a public apology. The ball was right back in their court.
So now you've got this complete deadlock, right? The two sides are dug in. And what happens next? Well, the fight spills out of the press rooms and right onto the streets, while at the same time, journalists started doing their own digging. The Congress Party went all in. They launched this massive nationwide campaign to really push their argument. You had torch marches at night, people out there collecting signatures, huge public demonstrations. It got pretty intense. So intense that top leaders, including Rahul and Priyanka Gandhi, were actually arrested while they were trying to march on the Election Commission's headquarters.
Okay, so you've got all this political heat, but that's just one part of the story, isn't it? The real question is, what about the actual evidence? What would happen if independent journalists went out and did some digging on their own?
So reporters from the Indian Express newspaper did exactly that. They started investigating, and what they found? Well, it wasn't so black and white. It turns out a lot of these so-called fake voters, they weren't fake at all. They were just people who had moved. A lot of them were former renters who left during the pandemic, and their names were never taken off the list. So the conclusion they came to is really important here. The voter list was a mess, for sure. But being messy isn't the same as being deliberately faked or fraudulent.
So, with all this pressure, the ruling BJP wasn't just going to sit back and play defense. They decided the best defense was a good offense and launched their own pretty powerful counterattack. And what they did was a classic political move. You've probably heard of it. It's called whataboutism. Instead of just dealing with the current accusations, they went digging through the history books. They shot back with this counterclaim, saying that the head of the Congress Party, Sonia Gandhi, was herself on a voter list way back in 1980, years before she was even a citizen of India. It was a textbook play to deflect the blame and try to change the conversation.
You know, it's easy to get lost in all the high-level political drama. But this whole thing had a real-world and frankly super weird impact on a regular person. Let me tell you about the strange case of Minta Devi.
So, in the middle of all these protests, someone puts a photo of this woman from Bihar, Minta Devi, on a t-shirt. They claim she was 124 years old, to really dramatize the whole fake voter issue. But then Minta Devi herself speaks up. She says, hold on a second. My real birthday is in 1990. Someone is using my picture for their political fight without my permission. It's just a crazy reminder of how ordinary people can get swept up in these massive battles.
So after all of that, the accusations, the denials, the protests, the fact checks, where does that leave us? Well, the truth is, we're basically stuck in a political stalemate with no clear resolution in sight.
Let's just quickly recap this whole standoff. On one side, you have the Congress Party alleging systematic vote theft, and they're pointing to all those messy voter lists as their proof. On the other side, the Election Commission and the BJP are saying, nope, it's baseless, show us real proof or apologize. One side takes to the streets to protest, the other fires back with their own historical accusations. And the reality on the ground? Well, fact checks seem to suggest it's less about a grand conspiracy and more about a really, really messy, outdated database.
And this whole situation leaves us with a really big and kind of troubling question for the times we live in. In a world that's already so politically divided, what happens to our trust in democracy when an accusation like vote theft is almost impossible to prove, but for millions of people, it's also impossible to just ignore? That's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining The Explainer.